Invest Africa, proudly brought to you by KPMG.
Hello and welcome to Invest Africa. I'm Nozi Pombanjwa. Now, social entrepreneurs see the world through the eyes of possibility, if you will. They are unapologetically ambitious and they seem to be keen on setting their eyes on systems-level transformation. And of course, to achieve these audacious ends, they have to put at the very center of their business model the most vulnerable. It's a great story. But are investors buying into the story? So in today's episode, we're going to be hearing from social entrepreneurs Andrew Levy. He's the managing director of Umuzi. We're also going to be hearing from Jaco Gerrits. He's the creator of the Crash Detect app. And we're going to be hearing from the director who comes from the Climate Change and Sustainability Unit at KPMG South Africa. His name is Neil Morris, and he looks after strategic and social investment. For you at home, if you want to participate in these conversations, all you do is just drop me a tweet. It's at The Real Nosy or at CNBC Africa, and don't forget the hashtag is Invest Africa. Let's get right into it. Andrew Umuzi, it sounds like it's a construction company in the process of building houses.
That's exactly what we are. That's exactly
have I got it completely wrong? What do you guys do?
Yes. So we are a youth creative agency, and we are basically challenging the narrative in South Africa by developing the next generation of black creative talent. It's a long spiel, but basically the vibe is a lot of black young people in South Africa aren't getting the opportunity to be in creativity, into the creative industry, because they simply can't afford the tertiary education fees. We've seen a huge movement of fees must fall. And so they get sidelined. And why this is a huge problem is that all our stories then come from one-sided space, right? The people who can actually afford the education and the industry. So this means that the black stories, the black narratives are absolutely sidelined, they're not told correctly, and they're not told from the people who are living those stories.
Let's put this into the context of social enterprise. How does the business model work, and why is this a social enterprise?
Good question. So what is social entrepreneurship? For me, there's no difference in the modern day between entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. I think young people specifically are waking up to the fact that to be an entrepreneur, you need to take into consideration your surroundings, your environment and people. And that's exactly what we're doing at Umuzi. We want to challenge this narrative, and we want to do it by helping and supporting young people in South Africa, because we really believe if we grow at 0.5% in South Africa, as we are at the moment, we're going nowhere. Right? I mean, we can believe that. So the point is we need to get more people economically active in South Africa, and the creative industry is a fantastic space in order to do that.
We're going to come to this. I think it's a compelling story, and we're going to challenge and test it a little bit, but really just to get a sense of the resilience of social enterprises in South Africa. Let me come to you, Jaco. I know that you were a recent celebrity, having won the venture campaign, and you've created a very interesting app called the Crash Detect. How does that work?
Yeah, so firstly, I'm not so sure about the celebrity part. But yeah, thanks a lot for having me today. Just in summary, what we do with Crash Detect, basically a smartphone app which auto-detects a serious car crash, pinpoints your location, and immediately dispatches the nearest ambulance, and also provides the paramedics with all of your life-saving information. And by life-saving, I mean medical information, because it's quite a problem that we face on South African roads. And where's the relevance with regards to being a social enterprise? I think most of us are aware of some of the road statistics that we have in South Africa. One stat that's quite familiar is the 47 fatalities that we face every day. So obviously, socially, there's a massive impact. And also to the economy as well. So the study that was done has found that it's costing our economy more than 300 billion rand per year. So obviously a massive economic impact, and it's not only just a national problem, it's actually an international problem. So much so that the UN General Assembly has proclaimed the period 2011 to 2020 as the decade of action for road safety. So
what comes first, Jaco? I mean, when we talk about social enterprises, we always, I think, go into this utopia kind of framework where we think there's a massive problem first and then the business model comes first. But is that true, or sometimes is there a business idea and then we match a social problem that it's fixing? How does it actually work?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I agree with Andrew. The business still needs to stand on its own two feet. So it needs to be a profit-centric model. which at the end of the day leads to sustainability and also greater accountability towards your target market. So I'm definitely one. We actually had interesting discussions in London a week ago. We had a lot of people that were focused on the social side, and then a lot of people were focused on the profit side. But I really think that you need to be profit-centric with the social change being a byproduct. As soon as you start moving to the other side of the spectrum where you've got more of a social lens that's focusing on the business, where profit is a byproduct, I think a lot of those companies face challenges. So you'll see me leaning over towards the other side.
So is there tension here, Neil, between social and profit-driven, and the best or most effective social enterprises, where do they lie?
Well, I mean, I think it is a challenge. If you make too much profit, then you're a for-profit business, and you'll have your social motives questioned. If you're too socially orientated, you'll be an NGO and you'll be faced with funding constraints. So it definitely is a balance to try and find this middle ground as to addressing social needs, of which on this continent we have many, but in the same breath making sufficient profits to keep this as a sustainable business. You know, what comes first is the social need or the business. I think if you're focused on a business opportunity, you may not necessarily pick up on really good, strong, sustainable businesses.
Right.
It may just be identifying a short-term profit. If you can truly understand what the social challenge is, and then build a business that addresses that social challenge, I think that may make your business more sustainable.
Neil, what can we learn from some of the insights that KPMG could probably share around social enterprises on the African continent? What are the big trends? How big is the space? And is it an attractive space where young people are playing, or what are the big dynamics here?
Sure, lots of questions in that breadth, and hopefully you guys can contribute to some of them. You know, the work that we're doing around strategic social investment is working with a number of our clients that often have a lot of money to spend. Their intentions are really good, but they're not necessarily getting the impacts that they're really wanting in the space. Or it's working with foundations that are more on the NGO side, so that we can try and improve the impact that they're making with their businesses. I think we encounter a space where there's a lot of enterprise development. And Andrew, I mean, to form that for me would be the space where the social challenge is really about creating jobs, and it's about creating some stimulation and growth in our economy. So it isn't necessarily a social need like your app addresses. It's the pure challenge of job creation that government and business alone can't address, and it's through these enterprises that we're needing to address this social need. So we do see some crowding in that space. Some successes, but unfortunately numerous failures where the businesses just don't turn out to be sustainable.
Would it be unfair of me to assume that South Africa would be a lead on the continent in terms of social enterprise development?
A leader? I don't know. I spent some time in Kenya, and I certainly see some really creative minds and some interesting entrepreneurship and businesses being created there. Some are really large, some are small and quite new and entrepreneurial. So I don't have a view as to who's taking the lead on the continent, to be honest.
Andrew, I know that one of the hot topics that you want to touch on is, well, who are the social entrepreneurs? I mean, as we sit here today, I'm talking to 3 white South African men. And one could easily say this is a proxy for what social entrepreneurship looks like on the African continent. Am I pushing it a little bit?
No, I don't think you're pushing it at all. I think there's a myth that needs to be debunked, which is to say a social entrepreneur cannot be successful in terms of wealth, in terms of career, in terms of prospects. Just because you have a social cause that underpins what you do doesn't mean that you have to earn nothing. And so what happens, unfortunately, for a large part of the continent, and I'm speaking broad strokes here because I don't know much of it, but is that they're like, no, that's only for the elite. That's only for people who can afford, to take off time and be socially conscious. No, man. Just because you're socially conscious doesn't mean you shouldn't be making money. A thing at Umuzi, which is really important for us, is that we pay market-related salaries to all our staff. Because if you don't, you get rubbish. Someone said when I used to be a banker back in the day, if you pay peanuts, you'll get monkeys. And that's the truth. Like, we need to create this culture in the social entrepreneurship space to say, actually, it's not a social entrepreneurship. It's just pure entrepreneurship. But our frame of mind and our referencing needs to change. So yes, at the moment, we have 3 white males here. That's probably not a good reflection because there's a number of beautiful people, different races, different genders, different religions doing amazing things. Why are these 3 white males here? I'm not sure, that's you. But I'm hoping that we bring different perspectives and that there are different perspectives and stories to be told.
So there are different perspectives and stories to be told, Jaco. You've had the privilege of participating in a campaign that is well funded. But the normal social entrepreneur who doesn't go the campaign route, where are they finding the money to realize the social change that they want to make in their communities?
Yeah, I think just coming back again to the whole social entrepreneurship versus standard entrepreneur, I think at the end of the day, entrepreneur is a problem solver. And many times you need to go out there and just identify some of the social problems, which there's many of. So I think there's massive problems that could be solved. It's just about applying your mind and also introducing a systematic approach in terms of addressing the needs, because there's an existing need if there's a problem. In terms of funding routes, we mentioned earlier where we said, you know what, you might be a little bit more profit-centric where the social motive is a byproduct, or you could have more social impact where profit is a byproduct. And I think also in terms of your funding options, you've got different funders out there that also use different lenses. So if you want to call it a white and black spectrum, it might be a certain shade of grey that they're looking for. And I think it's about doing your research and also understanding what kind of funders will have appetite for the type of business that you obviously have. And it's actually quite interesting because I think entrepreneurs many times, and social entrepreneurs many times as well, think about the Dragon's Den example to say, you know what, all of the power is just sitting with the venture capitalist or the guys that's got access to the funds. And it's not like that. I think Neil touched on it before as well. There's a lot of funds that's sitting there and the guys just don't have the avenues where they can actually spend the money. So I think there is a lot of money available. It's only about finding the right fit in the market as well.
A lot of money available, Neil. So let's get your view on whether you reinforce that there are pools of capital that can be unlocked, but also what are the investors looking for?
So I think there are pools of capital that are unlocked, whether it's locally through some of the BEE and supplier development and enterprise development programs. I think everyone's looking for some really good avenues to be able to build enterprises which create jobs and deliver a really good service. So I think that does exist. The pools of capital, you know, to try and attract that investor, when you've got two avenues that you're putting forward, one is from a business perspective and the other is a social perspective. I think if you're not able to articulate, sometimes in a financial return basis, as to what the social value is that this business is going to deliver, it may be more difficult for you to attract those investors. So those businesses that are leading towards profit may have an easier time of attracting the funds. Those that are leaning too heavily towards the social end up looking like NGOs that need some funding, which is harder to attract on a sustainable basis.
So I think on that note of the calculation of social impact and whether social entrepreneurs are getting that methodology right, let's take a short break. When we come back, we continue the conversation here in our Johannesburg studios. Are investors buying into the social entrepreneurship story? I'll see you in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Invest Africa. If you've just joined us, we're taking a look at social enterprises and we're asking what investors are looking for and whether social entrepreneurs are up to the task. If you'd like to tweet into this conversation, follow me at @TheRealNozy or at CNBC Africa. And don't forget, our hashtag is Invest Africa. Still with me in Johannesburg, my guests, Andrew Levy, the Managing Director of Umuzi, Jaco Gerrits, the creator of the Crash Detect app, and as well as Director overseeing climate change and sustainability at KPMG South Africa. His name is Neil Morris, and in particular looking at strategic and social investments. Now, before we went to break, Neil raised the point of the methodology around how we measure social impact. And Jaco, I want to bring this back to you because you've just come back from London, and one of the sessions that you looked at is precisely this. How do we measure social impact?
Yeah, I think in the entrepreneurship circles nowadays, everybody's familiar with the lean startup methodology, where you go to your target market and you test a couple of your assumptions and pivot if required. And a similar strategy works very well in the social impact space. So Acumen actually came up with this, where they said rather use enabling technology, for example SMS or IVR in your lower income groups, and make sure that you get data back from people. It's very important to understand obviously how many people you're going to reach, but the people that you do reach, what's the impact on the lives of the people that you reach? And when it comes back to pitching to investors, you can always say that these are the assumptions that I have in terms of revenue forecasts, but these are also the assumptions that I have with regards to our social impact. But at least you're going there with proof now in terms of what that impact is going to be, because you've got quality data that you've actually received from the field.
So the data is twofold, and Neil, I'm going to bring you into this because I'm hearing that on the one hand you need to have your data that informs your assumptions, but you also need to have the data that actually comes from the communities that you are aiming to touch. Neil, let me get your comment on this before I ask Andrew how he's doing.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, I think data is critical in this. So we've got lots of financial data, so measuring profits is easier. Understanding what the social impact is a bit more difficult and data dependent. Once you have the data, it's understanding what the actual change has been. And once you know what the change is, we would then try and quantify and value what that change is. We'd normally use these social return on investment principles and ultimately quantify what the social value is. And then you can use that as a proxy to try and attract the investors from these are the profits, and this is what the social return looks like, and this is what the full package is about.
Would it be correct to assume that a good balance would be an enterprise that hits the social return, but also shows compelling profit returns and economic returns as well?
I think it does make sense that you've got some good profit returns because it makes the business sustainable and doesn't require ongoing financing. So you do need to have sufficient profits that can pay the great people that Andrew employs their good salaries, and we can then make sure that the business continues with the right quality of people. So you've got to make money.
You've been running on the ground for some time now, Andrew, and what we're hearing is that you need to have this data pulled from both directions. No doubt when you first approached your investors, you had your assumptions, but has it been easy, getting data from the lives that you've touched, and what does that data tell you? Does it reinforce the vision that Umuzi has on the ground?
Look, I think in today's world, it's more easier than ever before to collect this data. But I think one thing that I'm hearing from both of you, which is really interesting as the layman in the room, the guy that isn't in the suit, is that all this language becomes very difficult for social entrepreneurs to try and unpack. You know, what do I have to show my investors? How do I show them? What metrics should I be using? And I think that's why I'm very excited about what Umuzi does now, is because we're trying to simplify what we do. We're trying to make it as simplistic to people, not only our investors, but to the people we work with, to say, this is our impact. And really for us, it's twofold. What do we want to do? We want to challenge the narrative so that we use social media, right? How many people are actually seeing the stories that we actually create? How many people are commenting? How many people are sharing? How many people are liking? How many people are debating whether our stories are real? And then on the more depth space that we speak about, how many people that we work with are getting jobs? How many people are actually becoming economic participants? This is what we use as our metrics. It's very simplistic, it's easy. You don't have to have a master's degree in development, economics to actually submit any of these things to a KPMG or an Investec or a Standard Bank. But the point is, this is what they require.
Right.
And the point for us sitting on the other side of the table is to say, make it as simplistic as possible. Otherwise, you'll spend your entire day doing that and not actually what you want to achieve.
I think it's really exciting that we have a creative social enterprise and as well as Crash Detect, which is also a bit slightly outside of what seems to be the craze, which is these high-tech, quick startup, quick returns, social enterprises that have become known for being the winners in the field. Neil, is this an accurate assumption of what we're seeing?
I think technology's got a key role to play because there are, as we said, a number of social challenges. And in all that we do, technology can often make it easier and can have quite a broad reach. A piece of work that we just completed in Kenya was working with a company called Safaricom. One of their products is M-Pesa, which is mobile money. What we did for them is trying to quantify what the social value is of the ability to move money between individuals and between businesses. And in the past, you would give your money to a taxi driver and he'd drive it out to the community. What's the value to you socially that you can now move that money with your phone to your gran in a village? And it's data rich, very difficult. 3,000 people need to collect that data to understand. You need a degree in development economics. It is difficult, but fascinating. And it really is a sector where we could see huge social reach, lots of social value, low environmental impact, good economic contributions, and nice profits. In this instance, the social value was 4 times the profit. So you could see the contribution socially was outweighing what the business was earning from a profit perspective. But yeah, technology, I think, is a good sector to be able to have high social impact, make good returns, and I guess speed to market's also useful in this space.
And of course, Jaco, definitely Crash Detect is an app, and obviously it is based on a solid technology. Was that, do you believe that was a distinguishing factor that allowed you to sort of win the South African leg? How important was that?
I think, I really approached it as if you would go to a venture capitalist. So I think there was great confidence in our numbers. So all of the assumptions we put down, I was able to back it up. And I think that was really the important part to me. So on the business side, to say, this is what we're going to do. These are our distribution channels. This is how we're going to scale the company. And should we attract any investment capital, this is how it is going to be applied. And I think it's important again to realize that even though we are a for-profit entity, with money flowing into the company, it's obviously to enrich the service offering that we have, but secondary to obviously also increase on the social impact we are desirous to achieve, to further cut down on emergency response times, to provide better value to the patients. At the end of the day, to eventually save lives and also drive down the economic cost. So I think it was a combination of everything, but I think, as always, you need to be very comfortable with your business, and when it's a social enterprise, you need to be comfortable with both metrics, which is both the business and also the social impact that you're desirous to achieve.
So the social entrepreneurs watching the show who are either in the process of setting up their entities or already have their feet on the ground. Andrew, how do you position yourself as a social entrepreneur so that you're increasingly more attractive to investors? What would you say would be the top 3 focus areas to get you started?
Putting me on the spot there, Nozi. I think that you shouldn't think of yourself as a social entrepreneur. I think you should just think of yourself as a hardcore entrepreneur, a problem solver, as you said. And I think you should, it's a hard slog. Entrepreneurship in South Africa is a very hard slog. We've seen that the SME is the way forward in terms of growing our economy. So government is quite excited about that, which is great, means that there is funding pools out there. But I think don't blind or be ignorant about this. It is very difficult. But the truth of the matter is you can make it happen. And you just got to be true to yourself, keep it clean, simple as you can, and make it happen. And I think that's been the learnings for Umuzi. We've been over the 7 years that we've been working, we've had numbers of different models. Don't be scared to evolve those models, change them, and hopefully change for the better. So
it's a process of reiteration. It's a process of part of just staying the slog and keeping it simple. Jaco, what was your secret sauce in the recipe that brings you here today?
Yeah, I think when it comes back to entrepreneurship, and it's applicable to social entrepreneurship as well, to me there's not really a difference at all. For me, I say that there's 2 challenges you face as an entrepreneur. You've got a lot of external challenges, so say there's funding requirements, you need to look at talent acquisition, and then there's internal challenges. And I always say that it's the internal challenges for entrepreneur that's the biggest. So there's self-doubt. At times you're not sure if it's going to work. You need to be your own and also your biggest motivator. And if you can't have that discussion with yourself internally and be your own motivator, I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs get it wrong. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs just run out there and they look for funding. But at the end of the day, you know what, use a little bit of sweat capital, bootstrap your business, get it to a point where it becomes an attractive proposition to anybody that's looking at it. But more importantly, believe in yourself, never stop chasing after your dreams.
It sounds like we had a motivational seminar, Neil.
There's no motivation. It's a hard slog. It's a hard slog.
Believe in yourself and just keep going. From your perspective, the most successful social entrepreneurs have been ...
Sure. Well, one might be sitting next to me since he's won the most recent award, and I would wager that you probably have a couple of failures before the success. And so one of the most successful entrepreneurs, they must have had a few learnings first. I don't think you get up in the morning, walk out your front door and start a already successful business. That's less likely to be the case. I think, to Andrew's point, it is hard work. You're probably going to try and fail a few times. But it's unlikely that those that are the most determined will consistently and persistently fail. At some point, you'll get the right business with the right social impact, and you then will make a success of it. So
Listen, I think the other thing that I wanted to say is that don't try and position yourself as everything to everyone.
Right.
You spoke about it briefly, but in the beginning of Umuzi, we were like, I remember this classic case. There was an EU grant for 500,000 euros. We were so excited, and you write this thing, you go crazy, and it's literally 75 pages long, and we dropped it in a post box in Pretoria, and we were with another 150 applications. Yeah. And we were like, we put in all this effort for nothing. I mean, that EU grant was absolutely not within our grasp. It didn't have anything to do with what we were doing. And so we learned, be more specific, look for the things that are within your grasp. Also, look for things that work within your industry. So for example, you're talking about driving safety, there's discovery, there's medical health, there's the alcoholic companies who are trying to show a good face. That's kind of where one should be looking for their funding from, not from, I don't know, MTN, just because they've got a nice sticker and they have a huge balance sheet, right?
Yeah, and they're in lots of trouble, so not much money for them right now.
I'm not going to comment on that.
I think on that no comment, let's leave it there. But I think the big message today has been keep it simple and find the balance between making sure that you're attracting those revenues so that you can make the profit that you need to keep the business sustainable. But of course, keep your eye on the social change. Make sure that you've got the data to make your assumptions, but also the data that shows that you can back it up. A very big thank you to my guest, Andrew Levy, Managing Director of Umuzi, Jaco Gerrits, the creator of the Crash Detect app, and also from the Director from the Climate Change and Sustainability Unit at KPMG South Africa, Neil Morris, responsible for strategic and social investment. For myself, Nozi Pombandra, it's been fantastic. Thank you for joining me. And of course, don't forget, it's hashtag Invest Africa. Let us know what you'd like to see next on the show. Until next time, it's goodbye.